Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, Minister and support staff, good afternoon. Welcome back after that brief adjournment. Members of Parliament, after a brief caucus with the Minister is able to respond to the questions of Members of Parliament, but would need approximately 1 hour. So we will adjourn this meeting until 4 p.m., at what time the Minister will return to respond. So with this, members, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is adjourned until 4 p.m. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back. We continue this meeting with Minister Patrice Gomes responding to the second round of questions by members of Parliament. I immediately invite the Minister to take the floor as he brings the answers to the members of Parliament. Minister Gomes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll dive right in to the question posed by MP Lewis. Why is the Ministry allowing individuals to purchase and sell property only for them to be informed when they apply for a building permit 3 years later at the land designated for agricultural use, despite being intended for construction? The case he's received. Okay, so begin again. Why is the Ministry, the question of MP Lewis, why is the Ministry allowing individuals to purchase and sell property only for them to be informed when they apply for a building permit 3 years later at the land designated for agricultural purpose, despite being intended for construction? The MP indicated he's received several or numerous complaints from frustrated individuals who purchase land with the expectation of building their homes to discover after that it's restricted. What steps is being taken to prevent such misunderstandings? In general, land purpose conditions are included in deeds and are in compliance with the land use regulations in the zoning plans. A person must build according to their deed. A person must, in the past, this wasn't always followed. Since taking office, I have worked towards respecting this and have sent back several requests if the purpose doesn't match the proposed development. If a person wants to build something on a parcel that doesn't comply with the land purpose as in the deed, a request needs to be put in to change this purpose. So again, land purposes and their conditions are in the deed. It is actually on the responsibility of the person purchasing the land to ask these questions about what exactly they're buying. And if a change, of course, is needed, that then has to be requested by the Ministry. Is there a system in place that allows prospective buyers to verify whether a parcel of land is for residential agricultural use before purchasing? If not, are there plans to implement such a system? This information can, of course, be requested from the Permits Department, which is VROMI Permits Department at stmartingov.org. Of course, you have to be in possession, of course, of a deed or have the information. So, of course, there's not really a general way of looking at this. So each person is encouraged to contact the Permits Department to find that out with the provided email. How long does the government have to process a building permit request? I would like to know the exact article of the law that governs this matter. Very interesting question. I can expect probably a lot more Ombudsman reports after this, but there's a National Ordinance on Building and Public Housing, Article 21, which states, subject to the application of the previous article, a decision shall be taken as soon as possible, but no later than 1 month after the application has been submitted. The decision will be communicated to the applicant in writing without delay, returning one of the submitted drawings. Important to realize once again that the building code that we currently use is quite old and does not match, for example, the amount of requests that we have. Neither does the staffing match the amount of requests that we have. So the idea of receiving a response to a building within 1 month doesn't take into consideration, for example, things like swimming pools, multiple-story buildings, multiple-story homes. This is a very old building code which envisions a very different St. Martin. So again, these things have to be adjusted to match the current reality of our country. MP Lewis continued to have questions regarding talk about the boardwalk, an extension of the boardwalk to protect the coastline. Is it still in Brumie's bucket list in the near future? There are, of course, ongoing discussions regarding not only the extending of the boardwalk, but also on enhancing the capacity of the boardwalk to act as a flood and erosion mitigation tool. These conversations are being predominantly held by the Department of Infrastructure. And of course, the Ministry of TIAT as it relates to the further development of Phillipsburg. What measures are in place to ensure that the distribution of land is conducted in a transparent and fair manner, preventing favoritism or corruption? How does the ministry ensure that land allocation policies promote social equality and prevent marginalized communities from being disadvantaged? As mentioned in my presentation, what the principles of land policy will be, specifically the land must be issued in a fair and transparent manner, taking into consideration social equality, while with the policy, everyone will have the equal opportunity to apply for government land. The question of MP La Cruz: if someone has been waiting for years for a response on a land request, will their request still be honored, or will they have to compete again? Yes, they would have to compete in that term of word. Again, the second ruling of DDAM confirmed, this is one of 2024, November, that DDAM rules have no temporal limitation and apply to government actions prior to the initial, even prior to the initial DDAM ruling of 2021. MP La Cruz's second question: should there be a distinction in policy between newly acquired government land and land that was already owned by the government? Based on the principle of equality, there can be no distinction. What measures are in place to ensure that those who have been waiting for land allocation for many years are not unfairly displaced by new applicants? As stated, those persons who applied in the past will have to apply for long lease land upon publication by the government. They will, of course, be treated fairly and as a new applicant. The question of MP York: we need to be more transparent to applicants. Either we don't hear anything or we hear positive news. What happens in between? People need to be informed about the status of their requests. How can we be more transparent to the public? MP York, through you, Madam Chair, I can fully agree with you on this and forms part of our plans for enhancing good governance and rebuilding trust. The current manual system and limited capacity needs to be addressed. And of course, forms part of E7. People are occupying public land, they go over their boundaries. What is government doing about this? Similarly to issues regarding the lagoon, once government finds out about encroachment, action is taken to correct this immediately. When was the map of St. Martin last updated? Brumie has quite accurate LiDAR aerial imagery of St. Martin from 2021 and is looking into which basic layers, this is of course street boundaries, parts, etc., need to be updated. Will the updated map be updated? Will the updated map be shared with or given to Google as well? Google uses satellite imagery to generate data. We haven't uploaded data to Google Maps before. MP waiver: how can we give preference to locals to apply for the tour? Important to know that the tour is already out, so this itself would be for this current situation wouldn't be a good change at this current time because it ends on the 22nd. But of course, this can be looked into for future tours, what options there are to include this in every single tour going forward as a consideration where possible. And the tour states that this tour does state that we do prefer people who live on St. Martin currently. Also, going back, and apologies for this, Madam Chair, to the question of MP Lewis, I realized in answering this question that we actually missed his question where he asked how soon can this application be published? It's been published since November. Back at the second question of MP waiver, what happens after February 22nd? Indeed, we missed it, so my apologies for that. If this is the case, the project team and myself will come together and discuss the possible next steps. Furthermore, I can share with you, we are also, as an option, looking into extending possibly a fourth time, that I think for another 3 weeks. That's something we have to discuss as well, given that we are now at the second extension. And meanwhile, I can imagine that we will proceed working further on the draft policy in-house that will continue to guide the work of whoever we do find eventually, using local knowledge within the ministry as well as the ZNV towards possibly headhunting someone with more of a focused selection for the policy writer for this project. And finally, we come to the questions of MP Arian. The ministry seeks legal advice on whether land with existing structures can be allocated under current regulation without a land policy in place. Let me come back to that question. The second question, if government land with built infrastructure is to be issued, does it have to be publicly announced for fair competition? Madam Chair said before, the DDAM arrest does not affect a reissuance. This is also confirmed by our legal, who advised the ministry to proceed with the renewals. And given that we've spoken about this so many times since, I think since my first Rummy Committee meeting in July, I think at this stage someone would have come knocking on my door and raided my jockey drawer if I had done something which was illegal. So, I think it goes on to the next question again, which I hope to really have laid to rest. The third question of the MP was the land issuance of Maho classified as a reissuance or an extension? Madam Chair, through you, as stated on several occasions, Maho is classified as a reissuance. Again, I hope after 7 months and several instances of answering this question, we can lay this to rest. What is the status of the ongoing investigation into the issuance of government land, particularly regarding the cadastral records and pending cases? We have asked this question to the cadaster, and we await confirmation of this information. With your indulgence, Madam Chair, for the MP, if we can provide this in writing, once we get that answer, we will be much appreciated. Since when has favoritism in land allocation been an issue, and what measures are taking place to prevent it moving forward? This has been indicated for several times for several decades. There's no administration in particular where this is targeted to. It's across several and many. And the creation of land policy, of course, will prevent this favoritism from happening going forward. How will the government ensure that a new land policy corrects past injustices and promotes fairness for all applicants? As stated in the presentation, this policy actually addresses creating fairness under several ways, and I can repeat them again. Mandatory transparency and competition, strict conditions for exclusive land or sale as two of those things which actually ensures that injustices are stopped. Regarding, of course, I think going back to the MP's question on the legal advice of structures that are built, that are being renewed, let me just clarify as well. There's a policy in place that basically says that government land cannot be sold if there's no construction development on it. What has happened in the past is that people have been issued government land and they've speculated. So they pay 1,000 gills, 3,000 gills every year. They turn around and sell the government land for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Since taking office, I have had one request to sell land like that, and I've said no. Because once there's no structure in place, you cannot sell the land because you're speculating. You haven't invested as required by law. Again, why are land policies in place? When it comes to the question about existing structures and its renewal, what's important to distinguish here is that I think the MP's use of the DDAM in its implementation in the Netherlands is different than in St. Martin. Government doesn't sell government assets or land in the way that happens in the Netherlands. And in instances of you saying to somebody that because you've invested a certain amount of capital into developing a property, and then you are not allowed, therefore, to have that property after 60 years, you basically, as government, become or can be considered a bad business partner. Because what you're actually asking government to do by stating that because someone can develop a piece of land and not be able to get it back, it means that then there's no incentive to actually develop government land at all, because what's the guarantee to actually be afforded to keep your investment? Government can, of course, take back government land. It is legally possible. We have to pay out the value of that development. So I think you can argue and say, in theory, what happens in the Netherlands is, yes, the Dutch government does publish land and its value, open to purchase. On St. Martin, if someone wants to purchase purchase or an investment, they have to go to someone willing to sell their investment. So if government starts now appropriating people's investments and don't pay for it or can't pay for it, and because we have to just reissue it and then give somebody else, that makes any investment in government land or any development of the person not attractive, and makes government a very bad business partner. And for that, Madam Chair, that is the end of my, if I've missed anything, let me know. But I think we've come to the end of the questions.
Thank you, Minister Gums. Members of Parliament, of course, now you have the opportunity to ask any clarification that you would like the Minister to explain from what he said or the answers given. Is there anyone who requires the floor for clarifications at this time? I see no one having the need for that. I just would like to remind the Minister of the, we do have someone, yes, we have MP York. Before I remind the Minister what I was going to remind him of, I give the floor to MP York for clarifications. MP York.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, good afternoon to everyone. Minister, I remember you answered the question on the map, my map query. I just didn't get the part of what the real plan was. Maybe I missed it, but if you can clarify that for me. Upon the question of encroachment and people going over the bounds, especially as it pertains to public property, the Minister, through you, Madam Chair, alluded to the fact that steps will be taken by the Ministry. I would like to know if the Minister can explain what these steps are. So, go down the list of specifics. What does the Ministry do in those situations? And as well, the Minister, through you, Madam Chair, referred to the old or the current building code, which is from the 20s, 30s, it's very old. But I remember prior to the Minister entering office, under the old Minister, I know they were working on a new building code. Because I know there was a whole craze, everybody wanted to submit the drawings before the new one would be implemented, and then everything went quiet. So is there a reason why the new building code was never implemented? I don't know, is there a problem with it? Is it still being worked on? What is the status as it pertains to the old building, or the new building code, or the pending one, I would say? And that would be, and the last question would be, the Minister agreed with the fact, through you, Madam Chair, that old requesters or requesters period would be the rightful thing to do to keep them updated throughout the process. But what would be the timeline into making something like that possible? A database or a system for that in the Ministry. So if you could have a kind of a deadline, not deadline, but a timeline, a tentative one, hey, within a year, within 2 years, within 6 months, that something like that could be possible. That also when it comes to permits, land issuance, all those type of things, when it comes to a waiting list, that people are kept up to date with their status. Yes, that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. I think in terms of clarifications, that is it, Minister. So I just give you a moment while I think you are looking for the answer given. And Minister, are you ready to respond? You could have a minute or two if desired. Okay, so we'll just adjourn for 2 minutes. Yeah, meeting just adjourned while the minister collects his notes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. At this time, the Minister will respond to the few matters that were asked to be clarified by members of Parliament, so I immediately give him the floor. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was one clarification request regarding what happens in encroachment, what exactly the government does. When the Department of Domain Affairs finds out such has happened, during, for instance, a change of purpose or a transfer, the said change or purpose of transfer cannot proceed until the situation has been corrected. Most of the time, this results in an extension of land where the encroachment is. This is standard, done with 5 years retroactive effect. If not allowed, then of course there's a request to remove whatever has been built. Unfortunately, as much as I want to do, the Ministry and Department of Domain Affairs does not have the capacity to look into this kind of situation on a project basis. The question regarding why the building code delay, in short, we are experiencing some legal issues with the text that was provided, and we're working, of course, to rectify those as soon as possible. The MP had a final clarification regarding what exactly is being looked into for updating within the LiDAR aerial imagery. This is the basic layers. So we have a 2021 map, but of course we have to look at clarification.
MP York, we really don't have the opportunity. It's either that you need to find out something. Do you have interruptions left that you then can, then it would have to be a proposal of order or, okay. You sure you don't want to use the interruption and just, you have no more left?
It's
Okay.
okay.
Minister, you may continue.
What I can do and propose, Madam Chair, that then following the meeting, I will caucus with MP York, and I can clarify whatever publicly in the next press briefing. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister, and
No
you
problem.
may proceed.
I think that was it for clarifications. Yes, and regarding the timeline for the implementation of a tracking system, that information I cannot provide necessarily because I don't want to be necessarily giving information I can't uphold to. We are, of course, discussing how to digitalize currently. We have had smaller steps in terms of enhancing communication because, of course, it's currently done manually. As soon as I do have something a bit more concrete, I will, of course, come back to Parliament and update them in due course as the project continues. And with that, Madam Chair, I think I've covered any other clarifications that have existed. If not, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for those responses. Minister, if you can just confirm for me for this meeting, I have understood that there are actually 2 documents that you have promised to send. Is that correct? The one with the notaries, what is at the notaries, and then one for Cadastre, one with the answers which you have to get from Cadastre. So I just want to note these down as 2 documents that will be sent to Parliament as a follow-up to this meeting, because by noting that, we can then close off this public meeting of Parliament with that understanding that those 2 particular documents will be forwarded to Parliament following this meeting and as soon as you can. So, Minister and support staff, with that, I want to thank you for your presence and for responding to the queries and questions of members of Parliament. Members of Parliament, I want to thank you for your participation in this meeting. And ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are tuned in, thank you for your interest in meetings of this House of Parliament. With that, with our thanks going out to all concerned, I will hereby close this public